This workshop will show you how to put your academic voice into your dissertation. It is very important that you know how to put your academic voice into your academic work. Using your academic voice effectively demonstrates critical analysis. This is a very difficult skill to master, so I will show you some techniques to help you do this effectively. In this session, we will define the academic voice. We will see how we can use our academic voice in the methodology chapter. We will see how we can use our academic voice in the literature review chapter. We will see how we can use our academic voice in the discussion chapter. What is the academic voice? Using your academic voice is when you add your own thoughts, ideas, interpretations, and analysis into your assignments. You insert your viewpoint into your assignment or dissertation. Putting your academic voice into your work will enhance your grades. But more than this, you have earned the right to voice your opinion because you read the articles, you read the books on a topic, you have listened to the lectures in your module. Plus, you are all academics, so it is expected that you give your opinion on a topic. You do not just repeat what other people have said, you have a mind too. You have something to offer as well. But it gets tricky. It is not straightforward. Can you express your opinions in an academic assignment? Can you express your viewpoint in your assignment? Yes, you can, but you need to do 3 things. Number 1, your voice comes after the evidence. So after you write your evidence taken from journal articles, evidence taken from books, evidence taken from reports, you can state your academic voice. You can state your opinion. It is almost like you are passing a verdict on the evidence you have produced. You are passing judgment on the evidence that you have produced. This is very important. You are stating what the evidence means to you. You are not just repeating the evidence, but you are giving a verdict on the evidence. This is the highest level of critical analysis. It goes back to the origin of the word critical. To be critical is to discern, to judge, to pass verdict, to decide. If you just provide the evidence, this is good because it shows that you have read the literature. But now what? You have read the literature. What have you done with this literature? What have you learned from the literature? How can you take this forward? So you need to go one step further than just providing evidence. You need to put your academic voice forward. Number 2, your academic voice must be cautious, like this burglar. You see how you need to tread carefully. You must tread very carefully. You must tiptoe. You must use cautious language, careful language. You need to be prudent. So this sentence, no scholar has reached the level of Smith. This sentence is not cautious. This sentence is not careful. This sentence is too strong. This sentence is too absolute. It needs to be softened. Even though you may feel this is right, and you may even be right, you'll need to show more caution. Try this, for example. Arguably, Smith's work has been influential, much softer, much more cautious. Smith's work appears to have influenced most of the field. I said most of the field, not all of the field. Even though I may feel that he influenced all of the field, I will say most of, just in case I may be wrong or I may need to backtrack. So you have to write like a politician. Always make sure that you have an escape plan. Number 3, your academic voice must be robotic. What I mean by this is that you must sound objective. You must sound detached, distant. You should avoid emotive expressions. You should not show passion or zeal. You cannot sound human. So this means avoiding personal pronouns. Do not use me in a sentence. Do not use I in a sentence. So do not say, I will, say, this study will. Do not say, I opted. Rather, you should say, the researcher opted. Which sentence is the most robotic? Number one, you should try to write like number one. Which sentence is the most robotic? Number two, you should try to write like number two. Which sentence is the most robotic? Number two is the most robotic. You should try to write like this. Which sentence is the most robotic? Number two is the most robotic. You should try to write like this. In summary, your academic voice comes after the evidence. Your academic voice must be cautious. Your academic voice must be robotic. Now we will look at concrete examples of putting your academic voice into your work. We will look at the three parts of a paragraph. A good paragraph consists of three parts. You should start with an introduction sentence. This is the opening sentence that gives an overview of the paragraph. It is vital to give an overview so that the reader is aware. If you jump straight to the evidence, the reader may not be aware of what you are doing. So the introduction sentence gently holds the reader's hand and escorts them throughout the paragraph. Part two, the evidence sentences. These sentences are the quotes or paraphrases from books, from articles, or from reports. This part is crucial because it offers support to your work and demonstrates to the marker that you have read the literature. Part three, the last part. Your academic voice is the closing sentence. This is where you give a verdict about the evidence. After you produce the evidence sentences, you should try to provide a verdict. This is done for three reasons. First, your academic voice follows the evidence. Only when you present the evidence can you express your academic voice. Second, you have entered university now, so you are an academic now. You are no longer a normal citizen. As an academic, you are expected to read the evidence, then express a verdict. Third, your academic voice concludes the paragraph. We want to make sure that we tie up all the loose ends. We want to make sure it's clear where we stand. So these are the three parts of the paragraph: the introduction sentence, the evidence sentences, and the academic voice sentence. These three parts come together to form one paragraph. Here is a metaphor to describe the three parts of a paragraph. The introduction sentence is the top layer of the sandwich. The evidence sentences are the filling of the sandwich. This is the meat of the sandwich, the most tasty part of the sandwich. And the bottom layer of the sandwich is the academic voice sentence. Your paragraph will resemble this sandwich. Here is an example. I have color coded this example to make it easier to understand. This first sentence is green. This is the introduction sentence. Canada is one of the best countries in the world. Just by reading this introduction sentence, I know what this whole paragraph is about. In purple, we add this second part, the evidence sentences. The evidence for Canada being one of the best countries in the world. These evidence sentences support the introduction sentence. The work of Smith and Carr 2007 is used to highlight that Canada has an excellent healthcare system. And the work of Gabriel 2010 is used to support the idea that Canada has a high standard of education. Both of these pieces of evidence are used to prove that Canada is a desirable place to live because it has a good healthcare system and a high standard of education. These purple evidence sentences are crucial to gain high marks and improve the quality of your work. The more evidence you can show in your writing, the higher your grades will be. Finally, we provide an academic voice sentence. This sentence states what you have decided about the evidence. Here is another color-coded example. The introduction sentence is in green. The Arthur system of teaching has consistently brought positive results. Just this introduction sentence alone explains the essence of the whole paragraph. Another point, this is very important. Do not begin your paragraph with evidence sentences. For example, do not begin your sentence with Crookendori 2002 produced a series of studies. Instead, You should always begin with an introduction sentence. When you begin your paragraphs or your arguments with an introduction sentence, you make it easier for the person reading your work. The person reading your work will understand the reason for your evidences. Whereas if you begin your paragraph with the evidences, you may confuse the person reading your work. They may wonder, why are they mentioning Crook and Dory 2002? What is the reason they are using Crook and Dory 2002? What are they trying to prove using Crook and Dory 2002? So make sure every paragraph or argument begins with an introduction sentence. Finally, the academic voice sentence summarizes the paragraph and states what you have decided about the evidence you have just used. In a way, the academic voice sentence is our final say on the matter. So our verdict was that the Arthur system of teaching has consistently brought positive results. I use for such reasons, but you can say therefore, thus, consequently, as a result, hence, this is why, and so on. Now we will focus on how to use the academic voice sentence in your methodology section. I will discuss 2 ways of using your academic voice in the methodology, but I'm sure there are many more ways. The first approach is to use the academic voice sentence to choose the best option. So we begin the paragraph with an introduction sentence, stating that there are many options available. Scholars have used a variety of methodologies to explore burnout syndrome amongst frontline NHS staff. So just by this introduction sentence, I know this whole paragraph will talk about the various methodologies available. In this evidence sentence, it is identified that Song 2006 utilized 55 nurses to explore the key factors that led to burnout in the NHS. In contrast, another evidence sentence states, Smith's qualitative study 2010 interviewed senior nurses to explore how burnout impacts staff morale. And another evidence sentence, similarly, Jones 2017 interviewed frontline staff in a qualitative study to assess the impact of burnout. So looking at these 3 purple evidence sentences, we see a variety of methodologies. Song 2006 utilized surveys, Smith 2010 interviewed senior nurses, and Jones 2017 interviewed frontline staff. Some students may stop here with the evidence, but this will just be descriptive. It's good that you have provided evidence, but you need to put your stamp on it. You need to show your academic voice. Which methodology have you selected? So we have in red the academic voice sentence right at the end. In light of the above studies, this research opted to utilize interviews because the results were significantly more consistent, and Song's survey failed to reveal factors that were not widely discussed. You need sentences like this throughout your methodology section. You need to end paragraphs with your voice. Which methodologies did you choose? How did you adapt to the methodology? I need to hear about you. It's great that you define, it's great that you describe, but I need to know how you applied it. How did you implement it? Another color-coded example. It begins with the introduction sentence in green, stating the options available. Then the first purple sentence talks about the quantitative approach. Then this is contrasted with the qualitative approach. So we have 2 evidence sentences in purple. And finally, we have your voice, the academic voice, where you choose between these 2 approaches. In light of the above options, qualitative research was adopted because it allowed for interactions between respondents. Such discussions may uncover issues unanticipated by the researcher. You selected which of these options, and you provided a reason why. The second approach to show your academic voice in your methodology is to show how you adapted the methodology to suit the needs of your dissertation. This shows a high level of critical thinking. I recommend that you adapt someone else's methodology rather than create a methodology from scratch. You should adapt someone else's methodology, find a similar study to your dissertation topic, and use their methodology. Or you can visit Ethos Ethos is a repository of PhD theses in the UK. You can select a PhD thesis that is in the same area as your dissertation and adapt the methodology of that PhD to suit the needs of your dissertation. Usually a PhD methodology is longer and more detailed than the methodology in a journal article. So I would recommend adapting a PhD methodology to suit the needs of your dissertation. So we find that Smith's 2010 study employed a grounded theory approach in which 50 successful culinary restaurant owners were asked about their experiences and perception by means of interviews. You found this methodology in a PhD, or you may have found it in a journal article. So you take this methodology for your dissertation. You do not want to take the whole methodology, so you adapt it to suit the needs of your dissertation. So this is your academic voice in red. Although Smith's grounded theory approach influenced the researcher's design, this study reduced the number of interviewees. Less is more. A smaller number of interviewees would allow for greater depth. You acknowledge that you utilized Smith's grounded theory approach, but you reduced the number of interviewees, and you explain why you reduced the number of interviewees. When you explain why you reduced the number, you should substantiate your academic voice with Sampson 2019. When you explain why you reduced the number, you should substantiate your reasoning with a reference. In this situation, it was substantiated with Sampson 2019. Your academic voice sounds stronger when you substantiate it with a reference. Adding this reference enhances your academic voice. Using the academic voice in your literature review. The first approach to do this is to use the academic voice to choose the best option, like we've discussed. So in this scenario, we have a number of definitions, and you'll find within the subjects that we study, there are a variety of definitions for many of the topics. In this situation, human capital has several definitions. So in your introduction sentence, you state that human capital has acquired several definitions. Then you provide definition 1 from Schultz. This is your evidence sentence. And then another evidence sentence from Bontis. He provides another definition of human capital. And Thomas provides a third definition of human capital. So now you have 3 definitions of human capital as part of your evidence sentences. Now you come in with your academic voice and you select which one of these definitions that you feel is the best, the most appropriate, and you explain why you selected it. Another example of choosing the best option. Once again, we start with the introduction sentence in green. For almost a decade, there's been significant disagreement about the regulatory role of social media companies. This introduction sentence introduces the argument. On one side, we have Johnson and Oppenheimer 2022. They argue that social media companies should not be allowed to regulate. In contrast, we have another argument. However is a very crucial word to show a transition from one argument to another, to show contrast from one point of view to another. However, Lee 2021 contends that it is the responsibility of social media companies to fight online hate speech. So we have 2 contrasting points of view. So now we need to make a choice. So we come with our academic voice. Reviewing both arguments, I've reviewed Johnson and Oppenheimer's argument and I've reviewed Lee's argument, and I would say the former appears to be more valid. When I say former, I mean the first argument from Johnson and Oppenheimer. So the former appears to be more valid. Such responsibilities places too much power in the private sector by making them arbiters of online speech and by extension, free speech. And I've substantiated my academic voice with a citation, Rice 2020. It's always good to do this. If you can try to substantiate your academic voice with a citation, it will make it stronger. But is there another way? Do we have to choose a side? Do I have to choose Johnson and Oppenheimer against Lee? Do I have to choose a side? The answer is no. You can be this policeman in the middle. You can try to find a middle way between both of these arguments. You do not have to choose one side over another. You try and find a middle way. You are essentially the middle man or the middle woman in the midst of this argument. This is the highest level of critical thinking because you're not choosing one or the other. You are trying to blend or complement 2 conflicting arguments. This is a very difficult task. So once again, we have the introduction sentence. We have one side of the argument from Johnson and Oppenheimer and another side of the argument by Lee. Then we put our academic voice forward. There's a way to bridge both arguments. Empowering a government regulator like Ofcom to engage with the social media company's internal systems of detection and judgment would be a commanding compromise. So you don't have to choose a side. You could try to find a way to bridge both arguments. A second approach is that you could use your academic voice to give context to the literature. So we start with an introduction sentence as usual. Beck&Smith's 2018 report presents an entirely positive image of working from home. So now we will use our academic voice to give context to this statement. However, Beck&Smith published their study before the coronavirus pandemic. Therefore, they had a limited understanding of the ramifications of mass working from home. It appears that the picture is not as positive as Beck&Smith believed. A range of studies have revealed some problematic consequences of working from home. Now that we are at the vantage point, we have the luxury of understanding the full ramifications, the full implications of working from home. And we have studies to prove it. We are giving much more context. We are explaining why Beck&Smith's 2018 report was so positive. It was positive because it happened before the coronavirus pandemic. Therefore, Beck&Smith wasn't privy to the information that we have now. So I'm using my academic voice to give more context to the situation. So we should see the journal article or the book in its contextual place, the universe around the book. We should be able to explain that. When was this article or the book written? What was the impact of coronavirus on this article? Did it happen before the pandemic? Was this article written before the pandemic, or was it written after the pandemic? And how has this affected it? Was it written before government regulation or after government regulation that may have impacted the study? What about the legislation? What about government policy? What was happening around this document? What was happening around this book? What was happening around the article? We can put forward many contextual reasons and factors by using our academic voice. We will now look at the academic voice in the discussion section or the analysis section. You can use your academic voice to look for possible reasons. So when we get our data back, maybe we have interview data or survey data, we can use our academic voice to put forward some possible reasons why this has occurred. So this, for example, a respondent to our interview stated that sometimes when talking to colleagues, I hear about an important upcoming meeting that I was not invited to. What could be the possible reasons for this statement? This particular interviewee did not elaborate. So it's upon you now to postulate reasons why by using your academic voice. So you could say, for instance, in this statement, it would seem that the respondent 1B was being overlooked, excluded, or ignored by other individuals or groups. This is a common experience across all social contexts. Such experiences are often labeled ostracism. We have put forward some possible reasons. We have painted a scenario. We have taken what was hidden and we made it explicit. We tried to read between the lines. We put forward some possible reasons. Adapt what is useful, reject what is useless to you, and add what is specifically your own. Please like and subscribe. Thank you for listening.